My brother got a 7-figure check for selling our family soul. My parents celebrated. The next day, I made one anonymous phone call that not only cost them every penny, but also guaranteed they could never work in this city again. It started, as these things often do, with the smell of garlic and oregano. For my entire life, that was the smell of home. Soriano's, our family restaurant, wasn't just a business. It was a living, breathing archive of our history, tucked into a cozy little corner of downtown. My grandfather, Nonno, built it with his bare hands and his mother's recipes. He used to say the walls were made of brick, mortar, and memories. After he passed, my parents took over. My older brother, Leo, became the face of the place, and I was the ghost. The hands in the kitchen. Leo was born with a spotlight following him. He had the easy smile, the perfect hair, the kind of charisma that made customers feel like they were the only person in the room. He'd glide between tables, telling stories about Nonno that he'd heard from me, charming tourists and regulars alike. He was the brand. My parents saw him as the future, the one who would take Soriano's to the next level. They'd watch him, their faces glowing with a pride that was almost blinding. I, on the other hand, was my grandfather's shadow. I didn't have the smile. I had his hands. I knew the exact moment to pull the pasta from the boiling water, the precise ratio of basil to pine nuts for the pesto he'd perfected, the way the dough for the focaccia should feel against your palms. Not just a recipe, but a feeling, a memory. I'd be in the back, sweating over the 6-burner stove from 10 a.m. until close, covered in a fine layer of flour and smelling perpetually of tomato sauce. Leo wore designer suits to work. I wore clogs and an apron stained with yesterday's ragu. He got the applause. I got the satisfaction of a clean plate coming back to the kitchen. For a long time, I told myself that was enough. The quiet unfairness was a low hum in the background of our lives, something you could almost get used to. It was in the little things. When a food critic praised the innovative twist on the classic carbonara, a dish I'd spent weeks perfecting, my father clapped Leo on the back and said, "That's my boy, always thinking." Leo just smiled and accepted the praise. He never once said, "Actually, Maya created that." When I'd suggest sourcing our tomatoes from a local organic farm for better flavor, my mother would sigh and say, "Maya, honey, Leo handles the budget. We have to be practical." Practical always meant cheaper, faster, less authentic. It meant betraying the very essence of what Nonno built. The hum got louder a few months ago. Leo started having closed-door meetings with men in expensive suits who didn't look like they'd ever eaten a carbohydrate in their lives. He'd talk about scalability and brand synergy. My parents would listen, their eyes wide with excitement. "He's going to make us a household name," my mom would whisper to me while I was kneading dough, as if letting me in on a glorious secret. I felt a knot of dread tighten in my stomach. A household name wasn't what Soriano's was about. We were about this house, this specific, noisy, beautifully imperfect home. I tried to voice my concerns. "What do these people want?" I asked during a rare family dinner. "What are they changing?" Leo waved his hand dismissively. "It's just expansion, Maya. Think bigger. Soriano's in every major city." "Our food can't be mass-produced," I argued. my voice rising slightly. Nonno's recipes need time. They need fresh ingredients. They need care. My father cut me off, his tone sharp. Your grandfather was a great cook, but he wasn't a businessman. Leo is. You should be grateful your brother is securing our future. Grateful. That was the word they always used. It was a hammer to silence any dissent. Grateful that I had a job. Grateful that Leo was successful. Grateful that they let me work in my own grandfather's kitchen. I learned to stop arguing. I just retreated deeper into the steam and the noise, the one place where I had some control. And I cooked. But I watched. And I listened. The hum of injustice was turning into a warning siren, and I was the only one who seemed to hear it. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. We had just closed, and the restaurant was quiet, except for the buzz of the refrigerators. I was doing a final inventory check, a task Leo was supposed to do but always forgot. His briefcase was on the desk in the small, cluttered office. It was open. I wouldn't have looked. I swear I wouldn't have. But a file folder had slipped out, and the logo on it made my blood run cold. Global Bites, Inc. They were a notoriously soulless food conglomerate known for buying up beloved family brands and gutting them, replacing quality with preservatives, and selling a pale imitation of the original to the masses. My hands were shaking as I picked up the folder. It wasn't just a proposal. It was a signed contract. A done deal. My eyes scanned the pages, the corporate jargon swimming in front of me. Asset purchase agreement. Intellectual property transfer. And then I saw it. The line that felt like a physical blow. They weren't just buying the name Soriano's. They were buying the recipes. All of them. Appendix A, a complete digitized list of every single recipe from my grandfather's handwritten journal. The journal he had given to me, the one I kept locked in a fireproof safe in my apartment. How did they get them? My mind raced. Then I remembered. A few weeks ago, Leo had asked to borrow the journal. He'd said a food historian wanted to see it for a local newspaper feature on legacy restaurants. He'd spun a beautiful story about honoring Nonno's memory. I'd hesitated, but my mother had insisted. Don't be selfish, Maya. It's for the family. Family. So I gave it to him, and he had walked it straight to a corporate office and had it scanned, page by page, like a piece of office equipment. My heart was pounding in my ears. This wasn't an expansion. It was an erasure. They had sold his memory. They had sold my purpose. Tucked in the back of the folder was a copy of a cashier's check made out to my parents and Leo. The amount had 7 figures, and underneath it, another document. A marketing plan from Global Bites, Inc. It detailed how they would streamline the recipes for mass production, swapping San Marzano tomatoes for cheap tomato paste, replacing fresh garlic with powdered flavorings, using frozen, pre-portioned pasta, adding 2 extra tablespoons of sugar to the marinara sauce to appeal to the broader American palate. I felt sick. This wasn't just a sale. It was a desecration. They were going to put Nonno's name on chemical-laden garbage. They were going to feed people poison and call it our food. I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. Something inside me went cold and still. I took out my phone, and with trembling hands, I photographed every single page of that contract. The signature lines, the dollar amounts, the ingredient substitution list. I focused especially on a clause about allergens, where Global Bites, noted that their mass production facilities couldn't guarantee against cross-contamination, but suggested keeping the original nut-free and gluten-free labels on the menu for brand continuity. It was criminally negligent. And it was my weapon. I put the folder back exactly as I found it, closed the briefcase, and walked out of the restaurant. The smell of garlic and oregano that had always felt like a hug now felt like a chokehold. I went home, clutching the one thing they couldn't sell. The original journal. They had the copy, but I had the soul. And I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't just going to stop them. I was going to burn their new empire to the ground before they could even lay the first brick. My grandfather didn't just teach me how to cook. He taught me why. It started when I was 6, too small to see over the counter. He'd lift me up and let me sit on a stool right next to him. "Food is not just fuel, mia cara," he would say, letting me stir the simmering sauce. "It is love. It is memory. When you cook for someone, you are telling them a story." He was a storyteller, and the kitchen was his stage. He taught me the history of each dish. The ragu wasn't just meat sauce. It was the Sunday meal his grandmother made in Sicily, a recipe that survived immigration, poverty, and war. The biscotti wasn't just a cookie. It was what his father dunked in his coffee every morning. A small ritual of peace in a hard life. He believed every ingredient had a purpose, every step a meaning. Leo was never interested. He'd wander into the kitchen, grab a meatball, and disappear back in front of the TV. He saw the restaurant as a stage too, but he was the only actor he cared about. While I was learning the difference between oregano from Sicily and from Greece, he was learning how to work a room. My parents encouraged it. "He has a natural talent for people," my dad would say, ruffling Leo's hair. "Maya is more behind the scenes." It was a polite way of saying I was invisible. The disparity was baked into our childhood. For his 16th birthday, Leo got a used convertible. For mine, I got a new set of high-quality kitchen knives. He saw his gift as freedom. I saw mine as a responsibility. The real gift, the one that mattered, came a few years later. Nonno was getting older, his hands starting to tremble. He took me into the office one afternoon, closed the door, and pulled a worn leather-bound journal from a locked drawer. The pages were yellowed and brittle, filled with his elegant, looping handwriting. It was his Bible. Every recipe, every secret, every mistake and triumph was in there. "This is not for them," he said, his voice low and serious, looking me right in the eye. He didn't have to say who them was. "They see the money. You see the heart. This is for you, Maya. You are the keeper of the flame now. Don't let them put it out." I clutched the book to my chest. It felt heavier than it looked, weighted with 100 years of history. It was the most sacred promise I had ever made. I kept it safe. I honored it. When my parents and Leo started talking about modernizing, I was the one who fought to keep the original recipes intact. I was the one who insisted on quality, even when it hurt the bottom line. I was the one keeping his flame alive just like I promised. But their desire for more was a hunger that could never be sated. They saw Leo's charm as a golden ticket. They started investing in him, not the restaurant. They paid for his expensive business seminars, his tailored suits, his networking dinners. When I asked for a new, more efficient oven for the kitchen, my mom said, "We have to tighten our belts right now, honey." A week later, they co-signed a lease for Leo on a luxury apartment downtown because he needed to project an image of success. Their blindness to his flaws was staggering. He'd come in late, reeking of expensive cologne, and brag about a deal he was about to close, and they'd hang on his every word. Meanwhile, I'd be covering the shift of a cook who called in sick, my back aching, my hands raw from scrubbing pots. They didn't see the work. They only saw the performance. The moment he asked for the journal, claiming it was to honor Nonno, I felt a cold dread. But fighting them felt impossible. It was always 2 against 1, with Leo as the beloved prince and me as the stubborn, ungrateful scullion. "It's family history, Maya," my dad had said, his voice laced with disappointment. "It belongs to all of us." But Nonno had said it belonged to me. He knew they wouldn't protect it. He knew they would see it as a commodity, an asset to be leveraged. He was right. And as I stood in my apartment, looking at the photographs of that contract on my phone, the weight of my promise to him settled over me. I wasn't just protecting a book of recipes. I was protecting his soul from the people who were supposed to love him most. And I would not fail him. The celebratory dinner was 3 days later. They'd booked a table at the most expensive steakhouse in the city. It was grotesque. They were using the blood money from selling Nonno's legacy to eat overpriced, flavorless food. I almost didn't go, but I knew I had to. I had to see it. I walked in wearing my simple black dress, the one I wore to funerals. It felt appropriate. They were already there, seated at a plush corner booth, sipping champagne. Leo was glowing, holding court. My parents looked 10 years younger, their faces flush with victory and greed. "Maya, there you are," my mother chirped, her smile stretched a little too wide. "We were just toasting to the future." Leo raised his glass to Soriano's 2.0, the beginning of an empire. I sat down and didn't pick up my glass. The silence from my corner of the table was a void they rushed to fill. "The Global Bites team is just incredible, Maya," my father gushed. "So professional. They see the potential we always knew was there. They're projecting we'll be in 50 markets within 3 years, Leo added, puffing out his chest. 50. They talked for 20 minutes straight, outlining their grand plans. A new headquarters, a national marketing campaign, a line of frozen dinners. They were so caught up in their fantasy, they didn't even notice the look on my face. Finally, Leo turned to me, a magnanimous, condescending smile on his lips. "And don't you worry, little sister. We've taken care of you. We've negotiated a position for you. You'll be the regional manager of culinary standards for the West Coast. A real corporate job. No more sweating over a hot stove for you." He said it like he was liberating me, like he was bestowing a great gift. That was it. That was the moment the cold resolve in my chest caught fire. I looked at each of them, one by one. "You sold his journal," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the restaurant's chatter like a shard of glass. The smiles froze on their faces. "What are you talking about?" my mother asked, her voice suddenly brittle. "Nonno's journal. You took it, you scanned it, and you sold it. You sold every single one of his recipes to a company that is going to turn his food into poison." Leo scoffed, trying to reclaim his swagger. "Don't be so dramatic, Maya. It's a business deal. It's a brilliant deal. We're rich." "You're thieves," I shot back, my voice gaining strength. "He gave that journal to me. He trusted me to protect it, not to sell it to the highest bidder. so you could buy champagne. My father's face hardened. That journal is a family asset. We decided as a family what was best. You didn't decide. You conspired, I said, my gaze locking with his. You lied to me. You lied to everyone. You're putting Nonno's name on food that would have made him weep. You're planning to sell dishes labeled nut-free that are made in factories full of cross-contamination. Do you have any idea what that could do? Do you even care? It's just fine print, Leo snapped, his composure finally cracking. You don't understand business. I understand integrity, I said, standing up. My chair scraped against the floor. I understand legacy, and I understand that you three have neither. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of fury. How dare you? After everything we've done for you, we gave you a home, a job. You have always been jealous of your brother. Just bitter and jealous. That was the line. The final unforgivable lie. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about love. A love they had clearly never understood. I'm not jealous, I said, my voice eerily calm. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to be related to people who would so gleefully desecrate a good man's memory for a paycheck. I turned and walked away. I could hear them calling after me. Angry, indignant shouts. I didn't look back. I walked out into the cool night air, took out my phone, and made the call. It wasn't to 911. It was to the FDA's anonymous tip line. I told them everything. The fraudulent allergen labeling, the ingredient substitutions, the name of the company, the people involved. Then I called the city's top food blogger, the one who built his career on exposing frauds and celebrating authenticity. I gave him the whole story, complete with the photos of the contract. I lit the match and walked away, ready to watch it all burn. The fallout was faster and more spectacular than I could have imagined. It was a chain reaction of consequences, each one triggering the next. The food blogger, a man named David Chen, who had a reputation for journalistic integrity and a massive following, broke the story the next morning. His headline was brutal. Soriano's soul for sale. Beloved family restaurant sells out to corporate giant. Risks customer safety for profit. He didn't pull any punches. He published excerpts from the marketing plan, the ingredient substitution list, and the damning clause about the allergen cross-contamination. He contrasted it with old articles praising the restaurant's authenticity, even quoting my grandfather from an interview he'd given a decade ago. The story went viral in the city's food scene within hours. The comment sections were a bloodbath of outrage and betrayal. Regulars who had been coming for decades wrote about how disgusted they were. By noon, the FDA had launched a formal inquiry into Global Bites, Inc. for the potential mislabeling and public health risk. Their deal with my family was immediately put on ice, pending the investigation. The 7-figure check was frozen. That same afternoon, the city's health department, alerted by the blog post, scheduled a surprise, top-to-bottom inspection of the restaurant. They found enough minor violations, things Leo had let slide in his pursuit of efficiency, to give them a failing grade and a bright orange "Closed by order of the Department of Health" sign to slap on the front door. My phone blew up. Dozens of missed calls and a flood of increasingly frantic texts from my mother, my father, and Leo. First came the confusion. What is happening? Call me now. Then came the accusations. This was you. You did this. You will regret this. and finally, the pleading. "Maya, please, you can fix this. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." I didn't answer a single one. I blocked their numbers. There was nothing left to say. The empire they had toasted just days before had crumbled into dust. Leo, the charismatic golden boy, was publicly humiliated. His face was associated with a scandal. He was no longer the charming prodigy. He was a fraud who had sold out his family's heritage. The corporate world that had been so eager to embrace him now wanted nothing to do with him. His expensive apartment, his tailored suits. It was all built on a foundation of lies that had just been exposed. My parents were trapped. They were pariahs in the community they had been a part of for 40 years. Old friends crossed the street to avoid them. Other local business owners looked at them with contempt. They were the people who had cashed in their integrity. The restaurant, their only source of income, was shuttered. The big payout they had been counting on was gone, swallowed by legal fees and the wreckage of the scandal. A month later, I heard through a cousin that they had to sell their house. The house I grew up in. The one filled with the phantom smell of Nonno's cooking. Just to stay afloat. Leo moved back in with them, into a small rental apartment across town. The three of them, trapped together in the ruins of their greed. The restaurant never reopened. Global Bites Inc. formally terminated the contract, issuing a public statement that they had been misled by their partners. They threw my family under the bus to save themselves. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel joy. I just felt a profound, aching emptiness. A sense of an ending. I had saved the soul of Sorianos, but I had to destroy the body to do it. It's been a year. I live in a different city now, a quieter one by the coast. I work in a small, farm-to-table bistro, run by a woman who reminds me a little of my grandfather. She cares more about the quality of her ingredients than the profit margin. It's honest work. It's healing. I've come to understand that what I did wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of preservation. A legacy isn't a name you can slap on a frozen dinner. It's not an asset you can liquidate. A legacy is a promise. It's the continuation of a story. My family saw Nonno's story as a product to be sold. I saw it as a life to be honored. They chose money. I chose memory. Sometimes protecting something beautiful means you have to make a terrible choice. You have to become the destroyer to prevent a desecration. You have to be willing to lose your family to save your family's soul. It's a painful, lonely lesson. There's no glory in it. No victory parade. It's the quiet, difficult work of being the keeper of the flame, even when you're the only one left in the dark who remembers why the fire was lit in the first place. My parents and brother chose to put the flame out for a bag of cash. I just refused to let them. True value isn't something that can be bought or sold. It's earned through love, integrity, and time. They had it all, and they traded it for nothing. I don't know what the future holds for them. I hear whispers, but I don't seek them out. Their story is no longer my story. My story is here, in this new city, with the salt-laced air and the rhythm of the seasons. I have Nonno's journal. It sits on my nightstand. Some evenings, I open it, run my fingers over his familiar script, and I feel him with me. I've started small. On weekends, I host a little pop-up supper club in my apartment. I only have room for 10 people. I cook his recipes, the real ones. The ones that take time. The ones that tell a story. I tell his stories too. I tell my guests about the man who believed cooking was an act of love. The flame is small now, just a candle compared to the bonfire it once was. But it's mine. It's clean. It's pure. And it's growing, slowly, on my own terms. My name is Maya Soriano, and I am the keeper of the flame. Was I right to protect a legacy by destroying my family? Or did I go too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you have a story about standing up for what you believe in, I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.